Alison Sargent joins me on the set to take a look at the papers today. Hi, Alison.
Hi,
This Wednesday, the European Union Parliament is set to debate concerns about press freedom in Poland, Hungary, and Slovenia. What have the papers been saying about that?
Well, the founder of one of Poland's leading newspapers today is calling for action from the EU. This is Adam Michnik of the Gazeta Wyborcza. He writes that the Polish media is being treated as the enemy of the regime. Quote, "This attack on the freedom of the media in Poland is an open way to undermine the values of the European Union. You must protect it," he says. Now, French paper Libération, meanwhile, is devoting its whole front page to these concerns about press freedom in Europe. Their headline today is "Censorship Rises in the East." The paper cites the forced nationalism of the press in Poland, the assassination of a journalist in Slovenia, and the financial suffocation of the independent media in Hungary. In its editorial, Libération warns that the state of the press in Eastern Europe is really the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the continent. And the paper says that, while they're glad that the topic is being brought up finally in the EU Parliament today, will they reproach EU politicians for not addressing it sooner?
There's a lot of focus as well, Alison, on Japan, that country gearing up to mark 10 years since the disaster in Fukushima. And the consequences of nuclear explosions are also the topic of another investigation that was published yesterday, but this one about France's nuclear testing in French Polynesia.
Yeah, this investigation found that France underestimated the impact of its nuclear tests that it carried out in the 1960s and 1970s in French Polynesia. This investigation has been dubbed the Mururoa Files. As we read in The Guardian, it was conducted by the French investigative platform Disclose in partnership with other researchers. They found that France underestimated the contamination on Tahiti by as much as 40%. Multiple types of cancers and bone and muscle conditions do remain very prevalent across the French Polynesian islands, and these new findings could potentially allow tens of thousands more people to be officially recognized as test victims and then claim damage payments from the French government. The issue, though, Jeannie, is that this study also found that the body that France created to examine damage claims has only reimbursed 454 victims. 80% of people have been rejected without any reason, to a point where this study found that people have simply stopped applying.
Next now, Alison, it's been the running theme all week long, Harry and Meghan and that explosive interview they gave to Oprah Winfrey. Tell us about what the British front pages have been saying now, especially in regard to what the Queen had to say about the interview.
That's right. The Queen responded the other day. Quite a short statement. You can almost get a good summary of what she said just by looking at the tabloid headlines today. She said that the issues raised about race were particularly concerning and the palace would investigate. But as we read here on the front page of The Sun, recollections may vary, she said, so basically suggesting that she does not agree with them. Now, as we read on the front page of the Daily Mirror, the Queen finished her statement with, "We will always love you." Now, this response was short, as I said, and came just already 2 days after the interview was aired. Still, the Daily Mirror here cites a royal analyst who called the reaction dignified. They said that the Queen, by responding with sadness and rather than with anger, that the Queen was being very skillful with this response.
Now, one person who has not responded to this interview with perhaps so much tact or diplomacy is a well-known British TV presenter, Piers Morgan.
Yes, Jeannie, and he has paid for it. He was forced to quit yesterday over his response. There were 41,000 complaints filed about his Monday morning show, in which Piers Morgan said he didn't believe Meghan Markle's suicidal thoughts. As we see on the front page of Metro News, he also stormed off of the set on Tuesday. This was after a co-host suggested that the problem he has with Meghan Markle, because he attacks her all the time, was a personal one because they once went out for a drink and then she started ignoring him. Now, Piers Morgan is a very well-known and controversial TV host in the UK. Metro News, for one, does not seem particularly sad to see him go. The paper has a punny headline on the inside of the paper. They write that he is Piers More gone.
All right, let's move on now to some quirkier stories in the news today. The Guardian's reporting on an unexpected proposal that's come out of this year's conference of the Chinese Communist Party.
That's right, Jeannie. This is compulsory romance lessons for Chinese college students. The Guardian reports that the goal would be to strengthen emotional education in relationships. They say this proposal was put forward by a delegate who said that most college students in China, quote, "when facing emotional or romantic setbacks are prone to be rabid, get out of control, and even commit crime." Now, the Guardian notes that this proposal has been getting a lot of support on social media. Many are saying that emotional education should begin even sooner than university, maybe in high school. I'd say that maybe it could even start earlier than that in middle school, right along with sex education. And I also think it would be great to see emotional education worldwide.
I agree. I think that's a great initiative. All right, we're going to wrap up now with a story from the New York Times. It's reporting that after a year of staying home in sweatpants for many of us, some people are starting to long for uncomfortable clothing once again.
That's right, Gina. I have to say I did not relate to this article when I first saw the headline, but the writer does make an interesting point. She says that the moral ratings we attach to our clothes derive from the associations that we have with them. So comfort clothing, like sweatpants and tracksuits, are now synonymous with being stuck at home, being limited, being constrained. Meanwhile, the torture devices of fashion have now become symbols of freedom and fun, and for many of us, our old lives. The women cited in this article expressed longing for heels, for strapless bras, for impractical fabrics, for sequins. A lot of them say that they've started dressing up at home just to sort of differentiate the hours in their day. I will say this article is mostly female-focused, and I'd be quite interested to know if there are men out there just walking around in ties at home, just trying to feel something.
That is a good question, Allison. Thank you so much for that. Allison Sargent there with our look at today's papers.